Hello, and welcome to week 9, where we are studying how to manage organizational change. Heath and I will look at this topic from the perspective of an article that ran in the Wall Street Journal announcing an organizational restructure within the McDonald's U.S. division. In June, McDonald's Corporation announced an organizational restructuring of its U.S. division as part of a plan to reduce costs by $500 million by the end of 2019. These measures were needed to offset significant losses in revenue and market share due to increased competition and other market forces. In fact, in the past 5 years, the company was down 500 million orders due in part because of increased competition, better breakfast options elsewhere, and also a healthier consumer mindset. Other market forces affecting the bottom line included increased global wages and rising healthcare costs. According to the article, the new structure would change the company's current operating model by transitioning to a field-first structure. The new structure would streamline the organization by eliminating 2 administrative layers, from 8 down to 6. Thus, field officers would have a more direct line to the chief executive of the U.S. division. The company revealed the restructure would require a reduction in force. However, the sources for the article did not disclose how many people would lose their jobs. McDonald's U.S. has already laid off administrative personnel in a series of layoffs over the past 2 years. The benefits of this new structure would be better technology support for franchise owners, improved communication between corporate and franchise owners, more career opportunities for employees, and faster to market food options. The McDonald's spokeswoman said as a result of these changes, the company would be more dynamic, nimble, and competitive. Response to the announcement was positive from investors and franchisees. Investors supported the restructuring with a 4.4% increase in shares the day after the announcement. And franchise owners said they were pleased because they felt fewer administrative layers would result in improved communication. They also were happy that the company was focusing on more technology and franchise consulting support, which would potentially increase restaurant profits. We understand that there are constant pressures on companies, and effective leaders must be keenly aware of the changing environments that influence their businesses in order to quickly adapt and evolve to address the changes. Globalization requires that companies transform their cultures, structures, and operations. McDonald's is one of the largest global brands and has more than 37,000 locations in over 100 countries. So clearly, the company's global strategy contributes to the overall performance of the brand and adds pressure for change. Rapidly changing technology is another pressure that influences the need for and the speed of change. The article refers to the fact that many restaurants have installed new customer-facing technologies, such as digital ordering, delivery, and self-service kiosks. There are significant investment costs associated with technological advances, and successful implementation requires additional training. Part of the rationale for the McDonald's restructure was to provide more tech support to franchise owners in support of these changes. A third pressure point for change is the speed of communication and changing expectations regarding how, when, and to whom internal and external stakeholders are able to communicate. One of the benefits outlined by the McDonald's restructuring was to improve communication and to make decisions more quickly. Our textbook also highlights generational pressures, which we don't go into in this presentation, but you will probably want to be sure to read about that too.
As we have determined, no company is immune to change, even multi-billion-dollar corporations. This quote is a good reminder to us as leaders how important change management is. As the shelf life of business strategies grows shorter, a corporation's transformation capability becomes its only enduring advantage. Due to its market pressures, McDonald's made a measured decision to improve how the team would function on behalf of the franchises. In this case study, the decision makers took an economic approach by reorganizing the administrative functions in the field offices to adapt to the company's changing environment. The purpose of this approach was to increase profits and improve shareholder value. We presume by the nature of the article that decisions were made about the situation by senior leadership, who most likely did not consult others as is typical in an economic approach to organizational change. The focus of the change was on structure, systems, and processes, and was motivated by financial incentives to address the financial losses and shrinking market share of the U.S. division. While the response from shareholders and franchises was positive as reported in the article, the McDonald's leadership should be cognizant of the negative effects a major transition like this would have on employees, especially since the decision was driven by financial incentives and was announced just a few days after the company opened a $250 million corporate headquarters in Chicago. Given these conditions, and also since this change was affecting organizational design, the change agent should anticipate both individual and organizational resistance. The resistance could manifest itself in obvious ways, such as employee strikes or walkouts, lower productivity, or other disruptions. Employees may also experience reduced morale and express negative attitudes by arriving late, leaving early, or calling in sick more often. Good employees may leave the company, and those who remain may be less motivated and stop participating in important team projects. Effective leaders anticipate resistance to change. They communicate regularly and often to maintain positive relationships and trust by encouraging feedback and participation in the process. They do not take resistance to change personally and focus instead on the emotions, concerns, and feelings of those individuals facing the change as the root cause of the resistance. Effective leaders recognize that they can reduce resistance by working with employees to help them understand how the changes will benefit them by creating new organizational structures and cultures. In the McDonald's restructure, there would be layoffs. The leadership will need to plan and roll out a new organizational design, which we learned about last week. How well leaders communicate and help employees understand the new power structure will influence how quickly they adapt to the change. Leaders can offset the impact of change by identifying and dealing with detractors early. There are two approaches to changing behaviors that are highlighted in our reading this week: Lewin's 3-step model and Kotter's 8-step model. Both approach a situation from the perspective that organizations function in a state of equilibrium between the need for change and the resistance to change. In a smaller scale situation like the McDonald's reorganization of the field offices, the leaders there may want to consider using Lewin's model. The model outlines how behaviors change through a process of unfreezing or identifying the forces of resistance and then moving forward or motivating those involved to pursue new beliefs, behaviors, or attitudes. The process of refreezing or reinforcing the new beliefs, behaviors, or attitudes is completed once the change behavior is attained. There are many internal and external pressures on organizations, and the companies that are adaptable and manage change effectively are the ones that will be the most successful in this fast-paced, high-tech global economy. We have 2 questions for you in our discussion boards for the week on this topic. Question 1. Based on what you read and your personal experience, what suggestions would you give to the McDonald's leadership team to successfully manage the changes at the organization? And question 2. What are some of the pressures your organization is experiencing, and what changes have been made as a result? Thank you all for your time and participation this week.